Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see about Biography of Michel Foucault. So let's begin. Michel Foucault was a French historian and philosopher associated with the structuralist and post-structuralist movements. He had strong influence not only in philosophy but also in wide ranges of humanistic and social scientific disciplines. And Foucault's work is transdisciplinary in nature, ranging across the concerns of the disciplines of history, sociology, psychology, and philosophy. At the first decade of 21st century, Foucault is the author most frequently cited in the humanities in general. Foucault's work can generally be characterized as philosophically oriented historical research. Towards the end of his life, he insisted that all his work was a part of a single project of historically investigating the production of truth. What Foucault did across his major work was to attempt to produce an historical account of the formation of ideas, including philosophical ideas. Foucault continuously sought for a way of understanding the ideas that shape our present, not only in the terms of historical function these ideas played, but also by tracing the changes in their function through history. Now let's see his early life. Foucault was born in Poitiers, France on October 15, 1926, in a notable provincial family. His father, Paul Foucault, was an eminent surgeon and hoped that his son would join him in the profession. But Foucault had other plans. His early education was a mix of success and mediocrity until he attended the Jesuit college St. Stanislas. As a student, he was brilliant, but psychologically he suffered. At the age of 20 in 1946, he gained entry to the École Normale Supérieure, that is ENS, in Paris to study humanities. While studying at the École Normale, he suffered from acute depression and he was taken to a psychiatrist. Because of this, or perhaps in spite of it, Foucault became fascinated with psychology and therefore he earned a license degree in psychology. It was a very new qualification in France at that time, in addition to the degree in philosophy. As he was involved in the clinical arm of psychology, he came to know about thinkers such as Ludwig Binswanger. From 1950 to 1953, Foucault joined the French Communist Party. He was inducted into the party by his mentor, Louis Althusser. As a result, he began to form a hatred of bourgeois society and culture, and with a spontaneous sympathy for marginal groups such as mad, homosexuals, and prisoners. Now, let us look about his career. In 1950, at first, Foucault failed at the agrégation exam, but he took it again and succeeded in the following year. For a brief period, he lectured at the École Normale, and after this, from 1953 to 1954, he took a position at the University of Lille, where he taught psychology. In 1954, he published his book called The Mental Illness and Psychology, a work which he later refused. During his writing of the book, he realized that he was not interested in a teaching career, and therefore he undertook a lengthy exile from France. Then, he spent next 5 years, that is, from 1955 to 1960, as a culture attaché in Uppsala, which is in Sweden, and then in Warsaw, which is in Poland, and Hamburg, the then West Germany. In 1960, he returned to France to complete his doctorate and take up a post in philosophy at the University of Clermont-Ferrand. However, in 1961, Foucault defended his doctoral dissertation at the ENS, circulated under the title Madness and Unreason, a history of madness in the classical age. It won critical praise but a limited audience. Later, a shortened version was translated into English and published in 1965 as Madness and Civilization, a history of insanity in the age of reason. The main thing of this work is that it examines ideas, practices, institutions, art, and literature relating to madness in Western history. In 1963, he published Birth of Clinic, in which he traces the development of medical profession and especially the Institute of the Clinic. Also, he published a sequel of his 1965 volume, that is, Mental Illness and Psychology, which he would again refused. In 1965, Foucault moved to a position at the University of Tunis, and soon, in 1966, He published Order of Things, which was enormously popular despite its length and difficulty. During this time, there was height of interest in structuralism, and Foucault was quickly grouped with scholars such as Jacques, Louis Strauss, and Roland Barthes. In the fall of 1968, he returned to France, where he published The Archaeology of Knowledge, which was about a methodological response to his critics, in 1969. In 1970, after a brief tenure as director of philosophy department at the University of Paris, Vincennes, he was awarded a chair in the history of system of thought at the Université de France, which was France's most prestigious post-secondary institution. This appointment gave Foucault the opportunity to conduct intensive research. Also, his political involvement now increased. He also helped to found the Prison Information Group to provide a way for prisoners to voice their concerns. This fed into a marked politicization of Foucault's work with the book Discipline and Punish, which narrates the micro-power structure that developed in Western societies since the 18th century, with a special focus on prisons and schools. Between 1971 and 1984, Foucault wrote several books, including a monograph on the emergence of the modern prison, then a 3-volume of a history of Western sexuality. In this work, he is primarily focusing on 2 centuries and the functioning of sexuality as an analytic power related to emergence of a science of sexuality, which he called scientia sexualis, and the emergence of biopower in the West. Then he also published numerous essays. Foucault now continued to travel widely, and as his reputation grew, he spent extended period in Brazil, Japan, Italy, Canada, and USA. He became particularly attached to Berkeley, California, and San Francisco Bay Area, and was a visiting lecturer at the University of California at Berkeley for several years. Foucault died of an AIDS-related disease in Paris on June 25, 1984, with his 4th volume of History of Sexuality still incomplete. He was the first high-profile French personality who was reported to have AIDS, and was very little known about the disease at that time. Now let's see some criticism of Foucault. Most critics point that Foucault rejects the value and philosophy associated with enlightenment, while he simultaneously secretly relies on them. Here, it is claimed that this failure either makes him dangerously nihilistic or that he cannot be taken seriously in his disavowal of normative values because, in fact, his work ultimately presupposes them. Next is careless use of historical information with claims that he frequently misinterpreted things, got his facts wrong, extrapolated from insufficient data, or simply made them up entirely. For example, some historians argue that what Foucault called the Great Confinement in Madness and Civilization, which did not in fact occur during 17th century, but rather in the 19th century. Next, on the other hand, we see that Foucault wasn't trying to get us to be nostalgic. He wanted us to pick up the lessons of way back in order to improve how we live now. Academic historians have tended to hate Foucault's work. They think it is inaccurate and keep pointing out things he didn't quite understood in some documents or other. But Foucault did not care for total historical accuracy. History for him was just a storehouse of good ideas and he wanted to read it, rather than to keep it pristine and untouched. Now, in conclusion, we can say that Foucault is an inspiration to look at the dominant ideas and institutions of our time, and to question them by looking at their histories and evolutions. Therefore, he made history life-enhancing and philosophically rich again. So, that's it for this video. See you next time. And if you like my video, then please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.